Hey guys, Don LaFleur here with another review of the new TMNT series on Nick. I'll be talking about episode 3, Turtle Temper. Okay, remember what I said about keeping an eye out for cool reviewers? If you don't, check out my review of the series premiere. Xarsil, if I said that right, wrote a fun and engaging review for episode 3, and I think you guys will like it too. I'll be talking about a few of Xarsil's ideas, but feel free to read the whole review for yourself. The link is in the description below. Okay, like many, I thought the plot was weak in this episode. The turtles didn't get any closer to figuring out what the Krang are up to. To make matters worse, they made a new enemy. And although the turtles are getting better at fighting together, yay, off-screen training, only one of their missions to date has been successful. I agree with Xarsil when he or she talked about a level of comfort in this episode. It's as if the writers thought, okay, we've moved the plot far enough, let's start using some fillers. I get the plot takes a hit when the writers focus on character development, but the turtles should have gotten something for all their troubles. Usually, I love me some character development, but I have to say that this episode fell a little flat for me. Not to say that this episode was horrible. Raph's characterization was quite insightful, actually. It seems that the new 2012 Raph has been presented with a small twist. Okay, as expected, Raph is hot-headed. But that infamous temper showed itself only when Raph got insulted. Okay, sure, he gets irritated when Leo makes all of them wait on a cold rooftop, or when Donnie goes on and on about technology. But it's only when his pride takes a beating that he really becomes angry. This has me thinking that his anger stems from insecurities. Just bear with me for a moment. As Leo said, Raph feels like his brothers don't really understand him, and I'm thinking that's why he rants to Spike. And he's much more vulnerable than he lets on. Trust Leo to come up with the most insightful insults, eh? The more I think about it, though, the more it makes sense. In the very beginning of the episode, Raph made Mikey spout a long part of what I think is a long ode about Raph's awesomeness. And why? Because Mikey poked his head like 3 times. Talk about overreacting. Fortunately, Raph learned how to control his temper when he needs to keep his cool, but all this means is that we haven't seen the last of Raph's temper, but hopefully it shouldn't jeopardize the turtles' missions anymore. The crew dynamic minus Raph was really interesting, mainly because Leo ended up channeling Raph. Like when he shut Donnie up when Donnie started talking about flash memory, and how he interrupted Mikey when Mikey tried to explain how he came up with spider bites. Looks like Leo and Raph have more in common than they might think. Donnie and Mikey were more or less themselves, but they found themselves missing Raph more than they expected to. Even Leo ended up realizing just how much the 3 of them need Raph. Looks like this episode had a dual role. It gave Raph a chance to control his anger, as the other turtles realized that their group just isn't the same without good old Raphael. Something else I noticed in this episode was how it focused on Leo and Raph. Okay, I'm ignoring Splinter for now. Every time Raph got angry, out of the turtles it was Leo who would rebuke him. Donnie and Mikey just kinda stood around and watched. It seems to me that Leo and Raph go in their own little world when they argue, and as a result, they essentially ignore their brothers, though their brothers are just as impacted. I'm intrigued to see what happens when Leo and Raph get into a real fight, and how Mikey and Donnie will handle themselves. Exarseal talked about how Leo is well suited to being the leader of the group, and this is something we really saw in this episode. Leo has done a really good job of reading his brothers and making the best decisions for their group. In the first episode, Leo was, as we saw, the only turtle of the four who didn't try to make a case as to why he was entitled to be leader. He just asked if he could, as if being leader was a privilege, not a right. We'll have to wait and see how long it'll take for Raph to realize this, though. And I have to admit, I'm really looking forward to the big climax of this tension between them. Okay, finally, getting to Splinter. I know I'm not the only one who appreciated his sarcasm. In my opinion, it was one of the highlights of the episode. Since he's relatively young, Splinter in other series has been pretty old. So it's in character for him, in this series, to use sarcasm to get his point across. Even though I really do approve of this aspect of Splinter, I'm already starting to get bored with him only scolding or training the turtles. Seriously, I want to see some action. And how long must I wait anyway to see Splinter in action? Wasn't that the whole reason why the creators of the show made him younger? Okay, well, I'm almost done. I just have a few more comments to say. The writers, in my opinion, they left a lot of loose ends in this episode. As I already mentioned, the turtles didn't actually learn anything new while staking out the lab. But I think the writers were hoping we'd be too caught up in Raph's problems to notice. Secondly, Donnie failed to mention how the hell April knew that the Krang were going to target that particular lab. What is she doing for intel? Who is she relying on? Or should I say, what? Dun dun dun. A few people have wondered, when are we going to get a glimpse of the Shredder? To that I say, I don't think it'll take too long. We're already going to be seeing the foot in the next episode, so I think we're covered. However, the villains that we've seen so far, seriously, they're getting very, very generic. The Krang especially, my goodness, in my opinion, they're degenerating as serious villains, though I'll admit they have their moments. That's why I'm really looking forward to next Saturday. The episode looks so diabolical, and I just can't wait to get a real taste of evil. Not to say that I'm a masochist or anything like that, but in my opinion, a show really becomes a quality show when the villains are actually evil. Alright, question of the day. If you could be any character in TMNT thus far, who would you be? And is this character your favorite character? Personally, my favorite character in this whole series thus far is probably Leo. But I wouldn't exactly want to be him. I would prefer to be the villain, like Shredder. Alright, thank you so much for listening, guys, and I realize this review still came rather late. It's really hard, surprisingly for me, to be able to balance university on top of making all these reviews. But I promise, next week I will be more timely. So again, thank you for putting up with me. Alright, talk to you guys soon.